There's a particular kind of pain in sports that almost nobody talks about. It's the pain of greatness without a crown. There are players who do everything, who make the all-star teams, who get the max contracts, who become household names, and yet never get the one thing they actually want, a ring. And tonight on the show, Shams Charania was talking about exactly one of those players, a 9-time All-Star, a future Hall of Famer, a man who has done it all except win it all. And then Sham said something that made me sit straight up because the team he connected to that player, the team that could give this aging legend one last shot at the only thing missing from his career, was the Los Angeles Lakers. So stay with me, Lakers fans, because this one has a story. It has a stunningly low price, and it might just make a whole lot of sense. Here's what Sham said, cutting right through the noise. According to sources, the Los Angeles Lakers have shown real interest in a trade for Philadelphia 76ers forward Paul George. The 9-time All-Star, a two-way wing in the twilight of his career, potentially coming home to Los Angeles to chase the championship that has eluded him for 16 years. Paul George, in a Lakers uniform. Read that again, because if you understand what this Lakers team is missing, and you understand what a hungry, ring-chasing veteran is willing to do to finally get a crown, you understand why this could be one of the savviest moves of the entire offseason. And I'm here to explain why, including a price tag that is going to make your jaw drop. Now I already know some of you are going to bring up his age and his injuries, and we are going to get to all of it, I promise, because I always give you the honest version, but stay with me, because the upside and the price here make this far more interesting than you'd think. Let me start with where Paul George actually is and how we got here. George is a Philadelphia 76er, and his time there has been rough. He spent the last couple of seasons fighting his body, and this past year was the hardest of all. He had left knee surgery that delayed his season debut, and then he served a 25-game suspension during the regular season. When he did play, in just 37 games, he put up solid numbers, around 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 3.6 assists a night, while shooting nearly 40% from 3. And here's the part that matters most. He finished strong. In the playoffs against Boston, he shot over 49% from 3. So even at this stage, even after everything, the talent and the shooting are still there. And here's why he's available. The 76ers are at a crossroads. They've made front office changes, parting ways with their longtime decision maker, and they're shifting their focus to building around their younger stars, Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. Paul George, at his age and his salary, doesn't fit that long-term timeline. So Philadelphia is motivated to move him and get his money off the books to accelerate their rebuild. NBA insider Jake Fisher has reported that George has actually rehabilitated his trade value, and that a deal could come together this summer. So you've got a future Hall of Famer, a proven two-way wing, available from a team that's motivated to move on. That's a door, and it's open. So now let me tell you about the price, because this is the part that should make you sit up. When a team is just trying to shed a big contract, they don't demand a king's ransom. They're not asking for your young stars or a mountain of draft picks. Insiders have compared a potential Paul George deal to what Atlanta got when they traded Trae Young earlier this year. And in that deal, Atlanta settled for a couple of role players and, get this, no draft compensation at all. None. So we are potentially talking about acquiring a 9-time All-Star, a future Hall of Famer, for essentially salary-matching role players and little to nothing in premium assets. Let that sink in. A player of this pedigree almost never becomes available this cheaply. The only reason it's possible is the salary and the age. And for the right team, that's not a problem. That's an opportunity. So now let me tell you who Paul George is at this stage of his career, because this is the heart of it. Paul George is no longer the 28-year-old MVP candidate who could carry a franchise. Let's be honest about that. But what he is now might be even more useful to a contender. He's a big 6'8" wing who can still defend on the perimeter, still knock down threes at a high level, still create his own shot when needed, and still make smart plays. He's a connector, a complementary piece, a veteran who's seen everything. And here's the most important thing of all. This is a man who has spent 16 years chasing a championship and has never even reached the finals. A player like that, at the end of his career, is hungry in a way younger players simply aren't. He will accept any role, sacrifice any ego, do whatever it takes, because he knows his window to win the one thing he's missing is closing fast. That kind of motivated, no ego, ring-starved veteran is exactly the kind of glue piece that wins championships. So now let's talk about why this fits the Lakers so perfectly, because it's about need and story at the same time. But first, let me give you the full picture of this man's career, because it's the key to understanding why he'd be so dangerous in the right spot. Paul George has been one of the best two-way wings of his entire generation for over a decade. Go back to his early years in Indiana, where he carried the Pacers into deep playoff battles and ran straight into LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals, falling just short. He survived a gruesome, career-threatening leg injury and fought all the way back to all-star form, which tells you everything about his resilience and his will. He's had stops where he chased a title with everything he had, including deep playoff runs that ended in heartbreak just short of the finals. 16 years of brilliance, of all NBA seasons, of being one of the most respected two-way players in the league, and somehow, some way, he has never once played in the NBA Finals. Think about how that must sit with a competitor like that. All that greatness, all those battles, and the ultimate prize has always slipped away. That's not a man who's gonna coast at the end. That's a man who is going to chase this thing with a desperation you cannot teach. And that desperation is exactly what makes him so valuable to a contender right now. Here's the Lakers' situation. They are building around Luka Doncic, one of the greatest offensive engines in the game. But Luka has clear needs around him. He needs perimeter defense. He needs reliable shooting to space the floor. And he needs a secondary creator who can run the offense when he rests. And here's the beautiful part. Paul George, even at this age, checks every one of those boxes. He's a wing defender who can guard tough perimeter players and help cover for Luka on that end, which is a real need. He's a knockdown shooter who spaces the floor for Luka's drives and passes. And he's a secondary creator who can keep the offense afloat when Luka sits. He's almost a perfect stylistic complement to what Luka needs. A 3-and-D wing with playmaking juice, just in a veteran package. And then there's the story. Paul George is from Los Angeles. He grew up in the area, he's played in this city before, and Los Angeles is home. So this wouldn't just be a basketball move, it would be a homecoming, a chance for a hometown legend to come back and chase the championship that's defined the empty space in his career, in front of the people who watched him grow up. You pair that emotional motivation with a perfect on-court fit and a bargain price, and you've got something genuinely compelling. And let me paint the on-court picture, because it addresses Luka's single biggest weakness. Everybody knows the knock on a Luka-led team, defense, specifically on the perimeter, where Luka can be targeted and hunted by opposing offenses. You have to surround him with defenders who can take those tough assignments off his plate, and big, long wing defenders who can do that are some of the most coveted players in the league. Paul George, even at 36, is exactly that kind of defender. He has the size, the length, and the experience to guard opposing wings and take pressure off Luka on that end. And on offense, he's the perfect complement, a guy who doesn't need the ball to be effective. He spaces the floor as a knockdown shooter, punishing defenses that collapse on Luka's drives. He can attack a closeout, and when Luka sits, George can put the ball on the floor and create, keeping the offense from falling apart in those minutes. He's essentially a plug-and-play answer to two of the Lakers' biggest needs at once, wing defense and secondary creation, wrapped in a veteran who's thrilled to do the dirty work if it means a ring. That's not a luxury, that's a need being filled. So now let's talk about how this would actually work, because the contract is the key. George is owed a big salary, over $54 million next season, with a player option worth even more the year after. To trade for him, the Lakers would have to match that salary, likely building a package around outgoing contracts, potentially including a sign and trade if certain pieces are moving anyway. And here's a clever wrinkle. Because George has that player option, a suitor could potentially work with him to decline it and sign a longer, lower annual value extension, which gives the team more flexibility. The money is the obstacle, but it's a solvable one. And because the asset cost is so low, the Lakers wouldn't have to gut their future to do it. It's a money problem, not a talent cost problem. But I told you I'd be honest with you, so let's take the doubts head on, because on this one, they're real. The first and biggest objection is the age and the injuries. He's entering his age 36 season, he just had knee surgery, and he's missed significant time. That's a legitimate concern, and I won't pretend otherwise, but here's the counter. The Lakers wouldn't be asking him to be the man. They'd be asking him to be a complementary piece next to Luka in a reduced role where his minutes can be managed and his body preserved for the games that matter. A motivated veteran in a smaller role with a clear path to the championship he's always wanted is a very different proposition than asking a 36-year-old to carry a team. And remember, he finished last season shooting lights out in the playoffs. The shooting and the smarts don't age the way athleticism does. The second objection is that huge contract, and it's a lot of money for a player at this stage, but the Lakers are in a win-now window with Luka in his prime, and the question isn't whether the contract is a bargain, it's whether the player moves you closer to a title. A healthy, motivated Paul George in the right role absolutely does, and because the trade cost and assets is so low, you're really just betting money, not your future. The third objection is the suspension and the durability questions. Fair, but that's in the past, and the bigger story is a player desperate to make the most of his final chances. Sometimes a fresh start, a return home, and a real shot at a ring is exactly what reignites a veteran. Betting on that, at this price, is a reasonable gamble. And let me put this in the context of the conference the Lakers have to conquer, because it raises the stakes. The Western Conference is a gauntlet, absolutely loaded with elite wings and explosive offenses. To survive 4 rounds out there, you need players who can match up with the best perimeter scorers in the world, and you need enough shot creation and shooting to keep pace in a shootout. The painful truth for the Lakers is that, around Luka, they've lacked exactly that kind of two-way wing depth, the guys who can both defend an opposing star and knock down a huge shot on the other end. Postseason basketball, especially out west, is won and lost on the wings. A player like Paul George, even in his veteran years, is built for those battles. A guy who's spent his whole career guarding the best and hitting big shots in the biggest moments. Adding that kind of seasoned, two-way playoff presence to put next to Luka isn't a luxury in that brutal conference. It's close to a requirement if you're serious about getting out of the West. So let me tell you where my head is at, and then I've got one final thought that I think is the real key to all of this. If the Lakers pull this off, they add a proven two-way wing who fills several of Luka's biggest needs: perimeter defense, shooting, and secondary creation, and they do it at a bargain price, while giving a hometown legend a shot at the ring that's eluded him his whole career. Picture it. Paul George spacing the floor and defending wings next to Luka, hungry and motivated, playing the best complementary basketball of his life because he knows it's his last real chance. Whether it pushes them to a title depends on his health, and that's the real debate. But the fit is clean, the price is low, and the motivation is sky high. That's a swing worth taking. And here's the thought I want to leave you with, the part almost nobody is connecting. The most dangerous player in basketball isn't always the most talented one. Sometimes it's the hungriest one. A great player who has never won, staring down the end of his career, will sacrifice things that younger, richer in time players won't. He'll take the smaller role, he'll dive for the loose ball, he'll guard the toughest assignment, he'll do anything because he knows this is it. Paul George is that player right now, a future Hall of Famer with a glaring hole in his resume, available for almost nothing, and potentially coming home to chase the one thing he's never had. When a player that proven, that motivated, becomes available that cheaply, the smart contenders at least pick up the phone, and the opportunity is sitting right there. So let me boil it all the way down for you because I want this crystal clear. A ball-dominant superstar in Luka who needs wing defense, shooting, and secondary creation more than anything. A future Hall of Famer who, even at 36, still provides all three, and who is desperate enough for a ring to embrace whatever role you give him. A bargain price that wouldn't cost the Lakers their future, and a homecoming story that practically writes itself. When the fit, the price, the motivation, and the narrative all line up this cleanly, that's not a coincidence you overthink. The health is the one real gamble, but everything else points the same direction, and the Lakers have always been exactly the kind of franchise that swings on a hungry star with something to prove. I'm not telling you it's signed. I have no reporting that says the ink is dry, and I am never going to make something up for you, because the only reason you keep coming back to me is that I shoot you straight even when the honest version includes real questions about his age, his knee, and that contract. Those questions are real, and most reporting suggests a deal is more likely down the road than this very summer. But I am telling you, the fit is real, the price is shockingly low, the motivation is real, and a hungry, ring-chasing future Hall of Famer is a rare kind of weapon. And tonight, Shams Charania put the Lakers right into that conversation on national television. You stack all of that up, the fit and the price and the story and the hunger, and you can feel it, can't you? This one would just make sense. So here's what I need from you. Keep your phone close over the next few weeks, because these veteran salary shedding deals can come together quietly and quickly once the dominoes start to fall. Remember where you were when you heard this, because if it happens, you'll want to remember the night a hometown legend came home to chase his ring. And tell me down below, do you do it? If you're the Lakers, do you bring Paul George home, bet on his health, and add a hungry two-way wing next to Luka for almost nothing? Or do you decide the age and the contract are too risky and look for a younger option?